I'm a guy that's 24. Each day I build some more. I like episode 7 and episode 8. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello Boy Girls, Rich Boy J here, back in with another video, and this is going to be your full wave review for the January 2020 LEGO Star Wars sets. Before we get into the actual review, if you just want my general thoughts on this wave, I'd say it's pretty solid. I think you have a good range of sets just in terms of sizes. I do like that 2 of the sets actually are themed to go together. I guess like 2 pairs of them, that's the case. We have a decent variety of sets in terms of where they come from. Like we have prequels, sequels, original trilogy, as well as even the live action TV shows being represented here in this wave. And I think some of the minifigures included in this wave are just flat out superb. Let's go ahead and jump into the review. We're going to go from smallest to largest in terms of the sets. I'm also going to include the timestamps for any individual set in this video in case you want to skip around. First, we're going to start off with the Microfighters. We have the set number 75263, Zorii Bliss's Y-Wing Resistance Starfighter. So first we'll start off with the figure. Zorii is basically the same figure we got in the bigger version of this set. Still a very cool looking figure. I love that she comes with those 2 blasters, some nice prints, and of course her custom helmet print looks awesome. Still nothing under that helmet. I think it would have been a nice kind of twist or just an alternative figure to give us the version of Zorii with her visor. I don't know if it goes up or down. I'll assume it goes up with her eyes exposed. I can see why they didn't do that just in terms of, I guess, spoilers. And I mean, that's a lot of work to do to make, you know, a new mold for a scene that we hardly see any time of in the film. But it would have been nice. I would have appreciated getting just a different version of this figure. But these Microfighters hardly ever present like brand new figures. So that precedent certainly hasn't been set. In terms of the Y-Wing Microfighter, I actually like this thing quite a bit. It's obviously very similar to the other standard Rebel Y-Wing that we got, but all the relevant changes are done, specifically like the front cones, not cones, the cylinders with the holes in them on the engines are changed around to make it more accurate to the Resistance version. I feel like the front of it is more boxy. The original one used like curved slopes on the sides. I think this one uses these flat slopes because the just cockpit area of the Resistance Y-Wing is a lot more angled and boxy compared to the roundness of the original trilogy Y-Wing. It also has this nice turret on the top that you can turn around. Well, it's actually kind of funny. This is basically the same issue as the set, right? I had an issue basically just trying to rotate this thing without the guns falling apart. Like if you really want, you can basically flip them up and then rotate it like that. But if you're gonna try to just rotate it by pushing on the guns themselves, you're gonna have a bad time. Really not much to say about this set. It's a small Microfighter, but it does look pretty good. I think that the red and white color scheme actually looks really nice on the Y-Wing, and LEGO did a pretty good job shrinking down the big set to this one to make this Microfighter Y-Wing. Next up, we have set number 75264, Kylo Ren's Shuttle Microfighter. We take a look at the figure first. It's basically the same figure we got before. That was in the bigger Kylo Ren Shuttle set, minus the cape. So if you wanted to get a cheap Kylo Ren with his red glue helmet, this is a cheap way to get him, which is awesome. I love when LEGO does things like this, especially since Rey came in such a cheap set. It's nice to get a cheap Kylo Ren. This one, however, does not come with his hairpiece. I think the bigger Kylo Shuttle did come with his hairpiece, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe it didn't. I'm not sure. Someone will have to fact check me on that. But I know for a fact this one does not come with this hairpiece, so you're going to be stuck with a bald Ben if you decide to take the helmet off. Putting the figure aside, the Microfighter is so cute. It is absolutely adorable. I just love this thing. I think it looks so great. Like for a Microfighter, I think this thing is excellent. I don't know if they could have made this any better for a Microfighter. I just love spreading the wings out and looking at it from the rear position, because I feel like this is where you really often see Kylo Ren's shuttle, and it just looks so accurate for a Microfighter. Like I love this thing. You can go ahead and actually sit Kylo Ren in there. It's kind of awkward to sit him in here with his lightsaber. Like he kind of has to awkwardly hold it. I can show you guys that real quick. I can even get the lightsaber in his hand. Boom. Got to put both hands up, and he's sitting in there. I guess it's not as awkward as I thought. That's actually fine. I think that's perfectly acceptable for it. But yeah, that's Kylo and his Microfighter with his lightsaber. And I don't know, I love this thing. I think it looks pretty incredible. So great job on this Microfighter from LEGO. I literally have no complaints about this set. It's a cheap way to get Kylo. It's a good looking build. What more could you want from a Microfighter? Next up, we have set number 75265, the Bantha versus T16 Skyhopper Microfighter. We'll start off with the figures. I believe the Tusken Raider is pretty standard in terms of just Tusken Raiders we've got in other sets. I'm actually pretty happy that we're starting to get these more and more in sets. Like when we first got this in that original T16 set, I was like, man, this is such a great looking figure. I really hope LEGO starts putting this thing in more sets. And of course we got a battle pack with one of these in it, and it's just starting to pop up a lot more, which is great. Like I want to build not necessarily an army of these guys, but at least a decent sized group of them. You know, for a Tatooine mock, these guys are crucial. And if you don't want to use them for a Tatooine mock as a Tusken Raider, I think their torso and pants just look good as generic Tatooine type clothes, and it's just a really nicely detailed figure, so I'm a big fan of that. I believe this figure is actually unique to this set. We got our T16 Skyhopper pilot, and I mean, what more can you say about this figure? This isn't really something we've seen in canon, so LEGO really can do whatever they want with this figure. Just make sure it maintains that Star Wars aesthetic. It does have a double printed face, and I guess the interesting thing about this one is I guess it's no longer supposed to be Luke per se. Like this is very clearly not Luke Skywalker. Like the original one basically just used Luke's mouth. It was very obvious it was supposed to be Luke. That is not the case with this guy. In fact, this guy looks more like an actual like rebel pilot, honestly. So if you're building some sort of rebel mock, you might want to throw him in there. I believe this helmet, though, is still the one that Luke trains with on the Falcon, if I'm not mistaken. So if you have that original Falcon set that came with basically the face print with a blast shield down, you could swap out the plain gray helmet for this one and it'd be accurate again. This is actually the second time LEGO's released this. I guess the second T16 had this helmet in it as well. I don't think, if I recall correctly, it didn't have those red stripes though. It was a little bit less detailed than this, but it is here. One of the things to take note too is I think we can pretty much officially say LEGO has given up on those dual molded Rebel helmets. Like before, you know, you could kind of go either way because we were seeing, you know, the older helmets being brought back, but they were only in the 4+ set, so you could say maybe LEGO was just doing it for that reason. This is obviously not a 4+ set. This is a brand new, not a brand new design, but a new print on this helmet. So it's not like they just had this lying around somewhere, they wanted to use it again. And LEGO's pretty much shown us that they are ditching those new helmets. I know some people will be happy about that. I, for one, not too happy about that. Next up, we can check out the actual build, and we'll start with the Bantha. When we first got rumors of this set, before it was obvious that this was going to be a Microfighter set, I was very excited about the idea of potentially finally getting a Bantha in LEGO. This is definitely not what I was expecting. I'm not even sure this really just like gets my Bantha fix. Like it's probably, you know, probably should be like twice the size of this, honestly, if we wanted it to be scaled. But for now, it's just what we're gonna have to cope with. I think at this point, I don't expect LEGO to make a Bantha mold anytime soon, so I'm honestly just kind of tempted to brick build one. I don't know. But I'm not gonna use that as a reason to harp on this build. Like, this is still a cute looking Bantha. I like it. I like the use of the curved tiles, the curved slopes here with the slit in them to kind of represent the fur that hangs off of it. It looks good. It looks very, I don't know, Bantha-ish, if I might say. I think the head also looks pretty good as well, especially with those horns coming down. And it's a good looking build, don't get me wrong. Like, I think it's right up there with the dewback. People were pretty high on that, and this one's pretty close in line with it. I just really wish we could get a Bantha mold. That being said, this is still a very nice looking Bantha. Next up, we have the T16, and this is like a surprisingly good looking T16. Like, I don't know what it is about these Microfighters that LEGO just does such an excellent job on them, but I'm honestly inclined to say that like the Microfighter builds look better than like the battle pack builds. I like this a lot. This is a good looking T16, and you want to see the actual pilot in it. And I guess I can also show off the Tusken Raider on the Bantha. So this is the pilot in the T16. Boom, looks pretty good. And then of course we have the Tusken Raider on the Bantha. and I think it actually looks pretty good as well. So all in all, I gotta give this line of Microfighters 2 thumbs up. Like, not really many complaints about them at all. Next up, we have our pair of battle packs. These both retail for $14.99. We're gonna start off with the set that everyone's going so crazy about. Set number 75267, the Mandalorian Battle Pack. Of course, we gotta talk about the figures on this thing first, so we'll pull up generic Mandalorian number 1. Like, it's so hard to talk about these things without having really any context as to like who they are, where they appear, what significance they have. I mean, they're good looking figures. Once again, don't get me wrong, like I did at least 2 videos on these things already, and I like them. It's just, I don't know, like it's really hard for me to feel any type of connection to them. Like, I suppose if you're the type of person who just likes Mandalorians in general, then you'll get a kick out of this because it's just for Mandalorians. But I don't know, for me to really have an attachment to a particular minifigure, I kind of need to see it on screen. I need to see what the heck these guys are actually doing. I'm not going to let that make me too down on this set because, like I've said many times before, I think these are all great looking minifigures. I think the detail is awesome. It's awesome that they're just 4 different figures, right? Like with battle packs, you know, a lot of people want army builders, but when it's something like this that's not really meant to be army built, like give me 4 unique figures, right? And Lego has certainly done that in this set. So torso and legs both look great. You flip up the back, you can see he has some back armor as well, and it's shiny. It's kind of cool. I didn't even notice that before. The front armor, I guess, is also shiny. But black faces, they all have black faces. No angry clone faces, which is actually pretty nice. I can appreciate that. Don't need more of those in my collection. I did come with that bag of gear that has like the comm links, and it's not a comm link, it's like the antenna and the other like visors and crap you can put on these guys. I usually just toss that. But first generic Mandalorian looks pretty good. We move on to second generic Mandalorian. This is actually the interesting one because this one maybe is not so generic. Funko Pop basically put out a photo of some, I guess, Funko Pops that are coming out, and this is actually one of them. So I don't know if this is just some concept art that Lego and Funko both got, but this thing is getting a Funko Pop figure, so maybe it'll make an appearance at some point. Just the way the last episode of The Mandalorian played out, I'm kind of inclined to not believe that. And I'm not going to give spoilers here, but if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the Mandalorians. But I don't know, who knows, these maybe at some point could become not generic Mandalorian figures, but this one's cool. Like, it has some decent colors on it. I love the green, I think it really pops, and I think that the blue kind of on the chin areas look nice as well. This is also sporting, I guess, is it official to say like this is the female style Mandalorian helmet with those specific types of eyes? I know those are the types that Sabine Wren has. If you flip up the back, we got some back armor as well. Once again, really good looking figures. Also, will say I'm happy we got a bunch more of these skinny capes. I'm really starting to love these things. I think they just, I don't know, they look better than the fatter Lego capes. And that is not me fat shaming. Next up, we got generic Mandalorian number 3, and this one's a blue boy. This one actually looks pretty cool. I think out of all of them, this probably might be the one I like the most, just in terms of the way it looks. This one has some interesting leg printing for sure. Like, the armor on the legs actually looks pretty sweet. If you flip up the cape, which is, I guess, olive green, so that's kind of interesting. That's the back armor, and like I said, I love the color scheme on the helmet. The light blue with the purple in there, I think looks really good. Next up, we have generic Mandalorian number 4. He has no leg printing, but he has some pretty decent torso printing as well. He even has the jade eyes on his helmet, so that's something. I don't know, you can look into that however you might. This is his back printing, which also looks pretty solid. And of course, he has a skinny brown cape to match. If there's one thing I really do like about this battle pack is the amount of skinny capes that we get. Because if you just bought a bunch of these, you could really use all the capes and just disperse them in other places throughout your collection if you wanted to. Honestly, like, I mean, Lego doesn't really use like the capes as robes anymore, but if you wanted to like go back through and replace all your Jedi robes with the cape instead, I think the skinny one would actually be at least a little bit closer to the form factor of a Jedi robe, even though most Jedis don't really wear capes. In terms of the build, it's almost the exact same build we got from back in the day in the older Mandalorian battle pack. It's the Mandalorian Speeder, so you can see that here. You can fit a Fig on there, and there's some stud shooters on the sides. Not really much to write home about. If you set that aside, there's also this little rock build, and there's actually this jumper here to put a stud shooter into, so you can use that to blast your opponents away. One thing I will mention is all these figures actually came with stud shooters, even these over here. I just didn't build them. Like, I have no use for stud shooters. I didn't even want to expend the energy in putting them together, but for the purposes of the review, you will know they all have stud shooters. Moving on to the next set. Set number 75266, it is the Sith Trooper Battle Pack. You basically just get 3 unique figures in this battle pack. So first off is the one that we've already gotten in a set before. It is the Sith Trooper. Still a great looking figure. Can't say anything bad about it. I love the way these guys look. Unfortunately, they don't do anything memorable in the film, which makes, I think, the value of these guys kind of go down, because, I don't know, like you can build an army of them, but we honestly don't even see that many of them together on screen at any given point. Like, if you look at the poster, there's probably more of these guys on the poster than we actually see in the film, which is kind of disappointing. The new figure to this set is the Sith Jet Trooper, which I guess is kind of cool. It's interesting to have a red Jet Trooper, and I like this figure quite a bit. It looks nice. It's basically just the Jet Trooper in red. I guess if you compare like this guy to the standard First Order Trooper, it's very apparent that like this guy is a little bit more derivative from the standard Jet Trooper than this guy is from the standard First Order Trooper, if that makes sense. This one seems to be almost exact to the standard Jet Trooper. It's just red. The jetpack the jetpack piece I like a lot. It's actually pretty cool. You can get a printed tile for the back. Helmet looks great. Of course, they're all sporting angry clone heads over here for whatever reason, but solid looking figure. And then finally we have, I don't even know what to use to describe this guy. They mentioned what the heck the logo on his hat means in the film. Honestly, just don't remember. Something to do with like an ancient like Sith logo or something. This is basically like a Sith fleet officer. That's the best way I can describe this guy. I mean, it looks all right. Like, it's, once again, not something that you'd really remember from the film. Like, I guess we probably saw these guys on the starter store at some point. But it's a decent looking figure. Not one that I'd really like to have a bunch of, but it's nice to have at least one to have some representation of the Sith fleet in my collection. Then we have the build, which is basically just a First Order Snowspeeder, and this is kind of a funny like decision to make for the build in this set, right? Like, I don't know, it's just, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not really sure what they could have done for the Sith Troopers in terms of like the build for the Microfighter. I'm sorry, not for the Microfighter. The build for the battle pack, just because once again we just don't see these guys do very much. So, like, in terms of context, like, what would you do? If anything, I guess they could have done like a really, really small First Order transporter that they all could stand up in. That would maybe make a little bit more sense, but that seems to be pushing the limits of the pieces you're allotted for a battle pack build. But this thing, I mean, it's very simple. It's fine, I guess. It's a fine representation of a First Order Snowspeeder. I'm just honestly not really sure why it's in this set. But if you want to put your figures on here, you can have the officer at the driver's position. You can set another guy over here. One thing about these helmets, man, those Jet Trooper helmets pop off so easily. It's honestly kind of annoying. But I guess if you really want, you can put him closer to the front and then try to squeeze this guy like right behind him. And boom, you have you have yourself, your boys are cruising. Like, what can you say about this thing? So even he doesn't want to be sitting in it. I don't know, like it's not a bad build. It's just not one that I understand. I don't really understand why this build is in this set. Next up is the lone 4+ set in the wave. It's 75268 Snowspeeder. This one, I mean, what can you say about it? It's a 4+ Snowspeeder. If we look at the figures first, I believe the Snowtrooper is just the standard one that we got in those action battle sets. So the updated Snowtrooper just the standard one. Nothing really to write home about with this figure. I guess it doesn't have a backpack. I think the other ones might have had backpacks in those action battle sets. This one does not. It still has that printed on skirt. Still not entirely sure how I feel about that, honestly. I did like the actual comma that they wore, but LEGO seems to be phasing that kind of thing out. Next up is Wedge Antilles in an X-Wing uniform. I made a whole video about this, and it doesn't annoy me any less than it did from back then. I don't know why LEGO decided to do this. I mean, they have clearly made Snowspeeder pilot uniforms before. They are similar, I'll give them that, but they're still different. And LEGO cared enough before to make a difference between them, to make them two different prints. So I don't understand why now in the future they decided not to do that. Ignoring that gripe, this is a cheap way to get this new Wedge Antilles helmet that previously I guess was only in a UCS set, so that's positive about this set. If we put that aside, we can look at the actual builds. We get one of these, I mean, it's a Snowspeeder, but it's not really a Snowspeeder. It's a Snowspeeder bike, I guess you can describe it as. It's very simple, like it's such a simple Snowspeeder bike, and I mean, what more can you say about it? It's fine, I guess, for a 4+ set. Feels so weird talking about these 4+ sets, you know, you can be so critical about LEGO sets, but these are clearly not meant to be detailed at all. I will say that this radar dish turret actually looks pretty good. I mean, these things, you can just build them as simple as you want, as long as you have this dish right here, and it's gonna look exactly like the radar dish. It does also have this like disc ejector piece right here, so if you push that through, that actually flew back and hit me, oh my god. If you push it through, the dish will fly out. Let me not aim it at myself. There we go. And yeet it goes. So it does also come with this ice piece here. I was thinking maybe that was there so like you could have a figure frozen, I guess, but they put a jumper there, so it's not like, I mean, you can kind of put a figure in there, but it's all awkward and off to the side. You would think that they would just put like a 1x2 plate so you can have them right in the middle and be like, oh, my guy's frozen, whatever. Lastly, you have the Snowspeeder. And I will give this Snowspeeder credit for being the most uniquely designed Snowspeeder probably since like the first or second one we got. Like obviously it's still pretty simple, like I'm mostly joking here, but you guys know I am no fan of LEGO Snowspeeders. I think they've been too reliant on that same general design for way too long. But this one is fine for a 4+ Snowspeeder, like a little kid who wants to have a Hoth-related adventure. I think we'll have a good time swooshing this thing around. Would be cool if there was a back seat. I get why there isn't. There's not even a second pilot in this set, but I think this is fine. This is a fine build for what it is. And next up, we have set number 75269, the Duel on Mustafar. This set retails for just $19.99, and it's everyone's favorite duel from everyone's favorite movie. How could you go wrong with that? First thing we'll talk about are the figures, and I think these have to be my second favorite figures in this entire wave. It's so cool because we finally have, you know, the battle damaged Mustafar versions of these two main characters from episode 3, and it just looks awesome. Like, I remember just putting this thing together and really getting a close look at the torso details and just those burn marks, and I was just like, wow, like that is freaking incredible. The one small gripe I have about this is Obi-Wan has tan boots. His boots are certainly not tan, they're more like dark red. If LEGO ever decides to start giving Star Wars figures dual molded boots as a standard, I would hope that that would be one of the first things they do, because this would be an almost perfect figure if they did that. But until then, we'll just have to ignore his wrongly colored boots. I believe this is also a new face print for him, and it's kind of interesting too, because he has like this kind of scared face on this side. You can imagine him screaming, "My allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy!" And then on the reverse side, he has a more angry face, and he's like, "Let her go, Anakin. Let her go." Either way, these are two good and appropriate faces for Mustafar Obi-Wan, and it's just a great figure all around. LEGO really did an amazing job with the figures in this set. Next up, we have Anakin. I think they have the same thing to say about the torso on this one. Like the scorch marks just look incredible. The torso on this figure in general just looks awesome. Like there's such great detail, especially like with his utility belt. Looks like there's even like a comm link on there, and just really good stuff all around. I think the face also looks pretty good. He has a standard, just mildly irritated face. And then he has his Sith eyes angry face. This is the type of face that might be screaming, "Don't make me kill you." The one gripe I have about this figure has to be the hairpiece. Like, this hairpiece is just not correct for Episode 3 Anakin at all. Like, it's barely even correct for, like, the end of the Clone Wars Anakin. Like, his hair is so much longer and differently styled than this. Like, this hairpiece really only fits Anakin's original character model from the Clone Wars. Even his second model, and especially his third model, are totally different. And his Episode 3 hairpiece is also different from this. Once upon a time, I did a video where I was basically showing, like, a different hairpiece you'd give to him. And this is the one that I came up with. It's basically Mad-Eye Moody's hair in brown instead of tan. So if we go ahead and take this off, actually, I guess it's worth showing this off. If you were considering, I don't know, making a more accurate looking Anakin Skywalker, I think this is probably the way to go. I don't know, this just looks so much better to me than his standard Clone Wars hair. And I think it looks even cooler with the Sith eyes. Look at that. That is an angry boy. Oh my God. But I mean, even if they did just want to insist on using the Clone Wars hair, because I guess it was in that recent Anakin's Jedi Starfighter set, like, they could have at least made it dark brown, right? Like, that was always the thing that kind of separated the movie Anakin from Clone Wars Anakin, the dark brown hair. So they just literally just give us the Clone Wars hair. So I am no fan of that. Lego, stop being lazy. Let's be faithful to our Skywalkers. And now we can talk about the actual set. I think this is actually a really fun set, like, for what it is. So it's kind of in line with this $20 dual sets that Lego has been putting out, even splits apart in that way. And it also even has a really fun feature of having the two characters on these droids. I put Obi-Wan on the slightly higher droid because, I mean, where else would he be? But this is pretty cool. Like, this is very reminiscent of that original set where they were kind of on those little pegs that you move around. This is not quite that advanced per se, even though that system from the first set was pretty awful. But this is still pretty fun. Like, you can have some fun kind of moving these guys around and having them clank their lightsabers against each other. So I actually really do like this a lot. I also just like the colors in this set. Like, there's so much red, yellow, and trans orange. It all flows together so well. It is very evocative of the essence of Mustafar. There's even a small little, like, lava flow coming down from here, which I thought was pretty cool, especially when I was building it. One of the play features, I'm honestly not too sure how you do this, but so in the film, there's like these spire things that kind of stick off. There's like 3 of them at least, maybe more. And I guess they're fighting on these, and these would actually fall. I guess you can do it. Well, you can't really make it fall like it does in the film, but basically they're falling, and like they have to like climb up them because the edge of it is like, you know, falling into the lava. So you can kind of have, you know, set up a cool scene here, have them fighting on this thing. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of cool ways to incorporate memorable scenes into this relatively small build. Yeah, I actually like this quite a bit. Like, this seems like a fun way to display the figures if you just didn't want to have them standing here. All in all, I think this might be my favorite of the dual sets. Like, the Starkiller base one was pretty cool, but this one is just, I don't know, there's just a lot packed into this $20 set, and I give Lego a lot of credit for that. So this set definitely gets 2 thumbs up for me. Next up, we have our 2 Tatooine sets. On the left, we have set 75271, Luke's Landspeeder, and 75270, Obi-Wan's Hut. We're going to start off with the Landspeeder. I know this is the one that everyone's been super stoked to see. We hardly get any of these, so it's always exciting when we do. I can even say that as a joke now, because this is obviously a set that's just been so overdone at this point. But before we get into the specifics on the set, I want to talk about the figs real quick. So we got standard original trilogy C-3PO. Not really much to write home with about that. It's just C-3PO. This is, I think, the most exciting figure in this set. We got Poncho Luke. Finally got ourselves a Poncho Luke. I was actually super excited when Lego revealed these photos to show that we would be getting this figure. For a set that has been so overdone, it is nice that they included at least something new, something fresh, something inspired to include in the set. Underneath the poncho, it's the same torso and leg print that we've come to expect from the most updated Luke Skywalker from Tatooine, but the poncho definitely does make this a very attractive figure. Lastly, we have the Jawa, who's kind of hiding in this rock formation, which I honestly find kind of funny that that's how they decided to include the Jawa. But yeah, this is, I think, just standard Jawa, not really unique to this set. but some nice printing on the back and front of the torso. I like it. His blaster can actually connect right here, and I like to keep him kind of hidden in this rock pile. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it is for some reason. Next up, we have the actual build, the actual land speeder. I'll give this thing credit for being the best land speeder we've gotten. Like, they've actually made quite a few design changes to this one. I think one thing that people were going to notice right off the bat is the front. We're no longer using that flex tubing to kind of represent the grill on the front of it. Instead, it's these stickers, which, I mean, I get, like, the flex tubing was cool because it was an actual piece, but this is certainly more accurate to what it would look like if Lego maybe had smaller flex tubes that could fit in there, or you could stack like 4 or 5. That might be the ideal way to go, but I certainly understand why they decided to go this route. There's also some pretty cool seats in this. I don't know, I liked that they decided to give us some nice kind of, I don't want to say detail, they're not like mind-blowing, but they're just good looking seats, I think. I'm actually quite a fan of the seats here. I think the engines look really nice. They're of course stickered, but the stickers just have some nice details on those. There's always one of the defining features, I think, of Luke's land speeder has been like the exposed electronics on the engine portions of the speeder, and this one certainly stays true to that. I think the final thing that I actually really like about this is the fact that you actually have a place for Luke's gun to go. Like, you could imagine my boy Luke chilling in his speeder, riding around town. He pulls up and sees a hater doing hater things, hops out the whip, grabs the pocket rocket, and blasts the opposition away. Just like that. But yeah, I really like that that's just sitting there. That's actually kind of funny to me. The set, because it comes with C-3PO, you'd probably want to have Luke on the passenger side of the speeder, and then you could have C-3PO piloting the speeder. So pretty cool set, one that we've gotten so often. But what this means is I can get rid of my old one and throw this one in. I feel like I've done that so many times recently. But really, Lego, like, cool it on the land speeders, guys. Like, we have enough of these things in circulation. Like, the old land speeder isn't even really that old at this point. Next up, we have Obi-Wan's hut. And this set is actually something new. Like, we've never actually gotten Obi-Wan's hut before, so it was very interesting to see how Lego would kind of tackle this build. Starting off, we'll look at the figures. This is just a standard episode 4 Luke Skywalker. Not really much to talk about here. Standard R2-D2 as well. We do get old Ben in this set, but the thing that's nice about this one is he's not wearing his, like, Jedi robes. So I think this is actually unique to this set. The Ben that came out in that Death Star Gunner set has obviously the hood and the robes on, and I think the older version of this figure doesn't have this, like, updated torso detail and face print. So I believe this is actually an exclusive figure to the set. And another Tusken Raider. I actually just talked earlier about how much I love getting these guys in decent quantities, and through this wave I've added 2 of them in my collection, so I'm definitely a fan of that. We move the figures out of the way, we get a look at the actual hut. One thing I really just love about this right off the bat is they're still sticking to that general, I don't know, like, cantina aesthetic when it comes to these. Like, obviously these buildings, these huts are all on Tatooine, so they should look consistent, but they're maintaining the design consistency throughout these Tatooine sets. So if you have the older cantina and even the less old one, these all fit in together, and I actually can grab those down once we get to the end of this portion of the review. But this opens up and you can see we are greeted by Princess Leia, or a hologram of Princess Leia, and this is actually a new piece. It is a hologram Princess Leia piece. Whenever we first got photos of this set, I noticed this right off the bat and I was just like, oh my god, I gotta have that. So thank you, Lego, for doing this. They really didn't have to make this a new piece. They've been using that Emperor piece for so long, but they did, and I appreciate it. I actually really appreciate it. There's some nice little doodads just on the shelves in Obi-Wan's home, like weird stuff. Like, I don't really know what any of this is supposed to be. Right here, he has himself like a roller skate sandwich or something. He has a robot skeleton leg. What's actually kind of funny about this is that you get this clear bar with the anti-stud at the bottom. And then in this box right here, you obviously have Luke's lightsaber, but you also get the like targeting machine, the targeting droid that they use to basically have target practice with on the Falcon. You can basically just set this up, you know, wherever. And I mean, it's kind of funny that this is in the set, considering that this was just something that Obi-Wan kind of randomly found on the ship, right? I don't get the impression this is something he would have owned in his hut, but it is kind of a cool thing to have there. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, if you have this T-16 pilot, the helmet is actually the one that Luke uses to train with. So just a lot of weird kind of callbacks to that scene in this wave of sets, but it is something that you can do if you'd like to. Another kind of funny thing they've included in this set is, of course, the blue milk. It's literally just a carton of milk and it's blue. It's a blue carton of milk. So it's kind of funny for them to throw that in there. We got actually a pot over here. Obi-Wan is whipping at the stove. That's kind of funny to think about. All in all, I think it's a cool, small, like neat little set. I don't think it's super accurate to what Obi-Wan's actual home looks like. Like, I think from the outside it looks much bigger, but for what it is, it's cute. It has all the features you'd want. You know, there's seats for Luke and C-3PO to be sitting around the hologram, and it's actually kind of hard to get them in there. I'm not even gonna bother trying to stick them in there. And then Obi-Wan also has his seat over on this side, and I like it because you really just get a sense of what's happening in that scene. Like this, I like this set because you really get just a feel for that scene in episode 4, where Luke's kind of learning about the Jedi, you know, what Leia might want them to do on this journey. And it's a cool set. It's a small set, but there's just so many little features and interesting things to take a look at in this build. There's also like a gaffy stick from a Tusken Raider in the corner. I don't know what the heck Obi-Wan's doing in this house, to be quite honest. I just realized that. But yeah, I think this is a pretty cool set, something we've never gotten before, and it definitely fits in with the Tatooine aesthetic. So even if you're someone who doesn't necessarily care to have Obi-Wan's hut as a build or something, if you have all the other Tatooine sets and you just want to have a Tatooine layout, you can close this thing up, face it literally any direction, and just put it somewhere along a row of other Tatooine builds, and it fits right in. Next up, we have set number 75272, the Sith TIE Fighter, also known in canon as the TIE Dagger. First, we're going to take a look at the minifigs. I'm actually going to bring these two up close first because these are the two figs that are not unique to this set. The Finn came in the Falcon in the same wave, and this First Order TIE Fighter pilot has been in a few sets at this point. So both good figures. I love the First Order TIE pilot, but I love this guy so much. And I'm happy to have another one of these, but I really would have liked to have seen maybe a couple more unique figures to this set. Like the pilot, I can understand why it would be in this set, even though, I mean, do the First Order pilots even actually pilot these things? Like, the Sith fleet is supposed to be its own type thing, right? Like, is there just a standard First Order TIE pilot in those? I don't know. That's a question someone can answer for me, but I think Finn definitely did not have to be in this set. I understand maybe wanting to include him in a cheaper set, even though, I mean, this is not a cheap set by any means, but I don't know, I'm just, I would have preferred to have a different figure, maybe even another Knight of Ren that probably would have fit a little bit better. But the one unique figure to this set is another Knight of Ren. This is the third one, and there is a fourth one in the next set. So pretty good looking figure. He has a giant sword, which is kind of cool. I don't know, just I can imagine hacking someone to death with that thing. But it maintains the same, I guess, design aesthetic as the other Knights of Ren. He even has a black, it's not even black, I guess it's black, a black version of the cap from the one character from Solo. Honestly, don't remember his name, but he came in Moloch's speeder, and this is basically just an all black version of that hat. I think it may also be an all, like, Pow's hat as well. Maybe that's a person whose name I actually know who has this hat. So that's kind of cool. And then of course, you know, face printing, torso printing, leg printing, all looks pretty good. These Knights of Ren figures, I think, actually look pretty solid. Would have been nice to have had them have done anything memorable in the film at all, but you know, that's just the way the news goes. So now, in terms of the set, I really can't even begin talking about the set without first talking about the price. This set is $80. Wow, this, I'll say right off the bat, this does not feel like an $80 set by any means. To put it in comparison with another set, and I think this is a very good comparison to make, I have the TIE Striker right here. The wings on the TIE Striker just feel significantly bigger than those on the TIE Dagger. Here, let me actually bring the camera back a little bit. Yeah, the wings on the TIE Striker look significantly bigger. The cockpit is like twice as big on it, and the set was $10 less, and it had more minifigs, if I'm not mistaken. This set, on the other hand, $10 more, and doesn't feel nearly as beefy or complete as a TIE Striker. That's disappointing to me. I think that this set is way overpriced. I think $70 would have even been asking a bit much for this set, but I don't know, that price does not sit well with me at all. In terms of the actual set, I think the best thing about this set is definitely the wings. The wings are super cool. They make use of the new-ish wedge plates, the 4x8 wedge plates, and even some brand new wedge plates at the very tip. You'll notice these wings are very pointy. How could LEGO have achieved such pointiness before? Well, they couldn't have, but these new pieces allow them to. This is a brand new piece for this set, and it's so freaking cool. Look at this. It's basically it's like a two. I can't even say it's a 2x4 because it's actually a little bit shorter than 4 studs. Here, let me see. Actually, yeah, it's like 2x3.5, but it's a wedge plate, and it comes to like a perfect point at the end. So if you guys have been wondering how you can make your MOCs pointier, we finally have the pieces to do so. So I'm actually super happy about that. I think that's one of the best things that this set has going for it, the inclusion of that new piece in black and in red. So that's actually pretty cool. But yeah, the wings, they look cool. They're like big play buttons almost. It needs this stand in order to stand up. Obviously, if it didn't have it, the ship would just kind of lay like that. The stand is very flimsy and small and dinky. It seems like such an afterthought to this set. Like, if you want to slide the set like around on the table, you're gonna have a bad time. The stand is probably just gonna snap off of it. I just feel like, I mean, for especially like an $80 set, they really could have put maybe a little bit more effort into making the stand seem a little bit less of an afterthought, something that actually can, I don't know, have a decent connection to the thing and allow you to kind of slide it around without, you know, just ripping the stand off if you try to do so. In terms of the cockpit, because that's really the biggest thing that I'm looking at when I'm looking at LEGO's TIE Fighters, this one I'm not a huge fan of. I will give them credit on the back. They're using these quarter dome pieces. I think that's awesome, but the front, they're just not using them, and I don't really understand why, because like the cockpit of this TIE Fighter is still, you know, generally shaped like a ball, like most TIE Fighters are, but it just doesn't really have much of that curvature represented on the front side of it. Like, the front just looks way too flat, especially if you hold it like this. Like, I don't know, it doesn't sit well with me. I think they really could have done a much better job on the front of this. You know what the front of this TIE Fighter honestly reminds me of? The front of this TIE Fighter reminds me of the front of the 4+ TIE Fighter, how it's just so flat and then like just the cockpit sits against it. And that just doesn't really sit well with me. I really don't like the way that looks at all. Once again, we can bring the TIE Striker back into frame. And you can see this one, like, you just feel, I don't know, like the front is just so much more rounded off, you know, especially with these pieces here on the edges. You have no such pieces on the front of the Sith TIE Fighter. But if you can open the cockpit up, there's not really too much in there. There's just basically 2 controls on either side of the pilot. And you can actually grab the pilot figure, just sit him in there. Yeah, well, maybe if he's not holding his gun. There we go. Pilot's in there, so that works mostly the way it should. I guess the last thing to really talk about on this set is there are some spring-loaded missiles in here. I actually kept them out because I don't trust myself around spring-loaded missiles. If you take one, you can see there's the little spring-loaded missile launcher. You slide that in, and then there's basically a little button right here that you push in and then blow your enemies away. So cool little play feature. I like it when those spring-loaded missiles are mostly hidden, and this set certainly achieves that. Like I said, I do like the wings. The wings are super cool, but the price, thumbs down. The cockpit, thumbs down. The stand, definite thumbs down. The figures, I'd say mostly are thumbs down because it's only 3 and 2 of them are figures we already have. This is probably the one set out of this wave I actually just don't really like. It certainly doesn't help that these things weren't super memorable from the film either. So yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say about this thing. And last but certainly not least, we have set number 75273, Poe Dameron's X-Wing Fighter. This is a set that retails for $90 in the US, and honestly, I would describe this set as a masterpiece. But starting off with the minifigs, we'll get the 2 figs that are not unique to this set either way. We get R2 and Poe. So Poe is basically the same as the one that we got in the original Poe Dameron's X-Wing, even down to his black helmet. The black helmet's back, so that's kind of cool. It is still dual molded, which makes sense. So here's a view of Poe with that helmet. His face print, torso print, legs print, all the same from that original set. I will say it's cool to see Poe back in an X-Wing jumpsuit as a minifig. I don't know, it just kind of brought back memories of The Force Awakens to me. Good times, good times. R2, of course, is pretty much unchanged from every other R2 we've gotten recently, so not much to talk about there. Next up, we have another Knight of Ren. I know these guys have names. I have not memorized them. Until then, I will just refer to them as one of the Knights of Ren. This one's pretty cool. He has a giant sword, dagger type of thing, as well as a blaster pistol. So he's good from close up and long range. His helmet is a just brand new mold, which is pretty sweet. I do appreciate that about these figs. Lego really went all out to make the Knights of Ren as accurate as possible, and his torso and leg prints are pretty sweet. He has like a robe that kind of goes from the top to the bottom, and he has a little bit of back printing as well, so that's kind of cool. All in all, cool figures. All the Knights of Ren are cool figures. Can't really say too many bad things about those, but I can not say too many good things about this figure. This is Janna, and this has to be my favorite figure out of any from The Rise of Skywalker. Holy crap, this is such a good looking figure, and I think it really boils down to the hairpiece. The fact that the goggles are kind of connected to that as well. It's just such an awesome mold. Like, I love that so much. She has her like arrows on her back, so that's kind of cool. She has even a bit of arm printing, which was honestly kind of a surprise. That's a cool thing for them to give to Janna. Torso printing looks awesome as well. Like I said, I literally can't say anything bad about this figure. This is a perfect figure for Janna, and I think Lego really knocked it out of the park. This is definitely going to be on my list for like top 10 minifigs of the year by the time 2020 is done. So shout out to Lego for just giving us a home run figure with Janna. Next up, we have the actual X-Wing. It does include this little service ladder to access it. Not really much to talk about there, so we'll set that aside. In terms of the actual design, I know a lot of people are going to look at this and say, oh, another X-Wing, I guess it's just orange and white now. But I gotta give Lego a lot of credit. There's actually a decent amount of design upgrades to this X-Wing. I think the one that really sticks out to me, and the thing that just makes this thing look so awesome to me, has to be the engines. They made these new, like, big fender pieces. Not even a big fender piece. I'm honestly not sure how to describe this piece, but it is like the perfect piece for a T70 X-Wing engine, and there's 8 of them in this set in light gray, obviously for both sides of the engines, and it just looks perfect. Like, it does so much for the design of the engines on this thing. It is certainly many steps above what they did originally for the T70 X-Wings, with just the car fender sideways sticking out of there. This is just perfect. I love this so much. It makes such a big difference to these X-Wings. Another thing they did was they made the wing mechanism basically the same as the T65 X-Wing that came out a couple years ago. So there's this little tan lever you push forward to make the wings go into attack position, and then there's a little thing at the bottom you can push to make the wings shut. One thing I will say, I get like they're using the white rubber bands now, which are the smaller ones, so there's a little bit more tightness to the wings, but it is honestly kind of jarring when you shut the wings on this thing using the bottom. Like, look at this. It's just, I don't know, like it just, like I have to brace myself when I do it because it's just so jarring. I don't know, it's a very small nitpicky thing, but maybe they could have used a little bit looser rubber bands for this because it closes just really, really hard. They did, I think, do a pretty good job at closing up the gaps between the wings. Like, I think on the original X-Wings, there was just a small gap between the top and the bottom wing. They're still not, like, perfectly flush as they should be, but this is nice. They at least, like, touch each other. So that's something that I think they improved on the design. I also like the use of these curved slopes, the inverted versions, to kind of represent the blue stripes on the X-Wing. I think the color scheme on this thing is beautiful. I love just the white and the orange. The orange certainly makes it pop. And then the little accents of the blue just also give it a little bit more coloration, make it look a little bit more detail and just visually interesting. This is a view of the X-Wing from the back. I know this is the view a lot of people want to see because this is the view we see so often on the screen. So, you know, you have it, you're flying it, S-foils are in attack position, and you are good to go. Like, that's the good stuff, man. That's what Star Wars is all about. We come back to the front. We have the same cockpit piece we've been using for all the recent X-Wings. Still not super accurate, but it's a lot better than this one, right? There is space to put Poe in the cockpit, obviously. And there's also space to put his gun, so you can put his blaster right there. And then you can just set Poe right in there. And you got yourself Poe chilling in his T-75. I'm sorry, his T-70. In the back, you can actually put an R2 unit, which is kind of interesting, right? Like, this is the first time we've seen, I guess, an R2 unit in a T-70 X-Wing, at least in films or in Lego. I think if you want to put BB-8 in there, you might, like, it would fit, like, obviously, because R2 is a bit taller, but you might have to, like, put some extra bricks in there to get him to sit up high enough. Like, if you just sit him in as is, like, he sits way too deep into the ship. So if you wanted to modify it, I'm sure you could maybe even add some plates in there to close up the gaps around his head, but that could be an option if you just want to have Poe with his best friend BB-8. But like I said, this set is just a masterpiece to me. Lego has really just closed in on like a almost perfect design for their X-Wing, just in terms of, you know, what they want to get out of the set. I think that these engines are incredible, and I'm just so happy with this set. I love this thing so much. I can't even be upset with them doing another X-Wing because they've improved this one so much. It's obviously the new color scheme from the new film, and they've done enough updates to it, I think, to justify putting out another X-Wing. But that's going to finish up the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed checking out this mega review of all the January 2020 sets. All in all, I have to generally give this wave of sets a thumbs up. I think this X-Wing is really the one that puts it, you know, up above average. The TIE Dagger is definitely one that kind of puts it below, but like just the beauty of this X-Wing, I think, is enough to even bring this entire wave up, even with the Sith TIE Fighter, which I don't really care for. But I'd love to know what you guys think about these sets. Let me know in the comment section which of these sets you picked up. Do you like it? Do you not like it? I would love to know your opinion on these sets. If you like what I do, go ahead, support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.